Welcome to Creative Current, a podcast for those of us who want to get caught up in our creativity.
We're Jess and Jen, two friends and creatives who met in tech and realized we both spoke the same language of possibility, imagination, and creation.
We believe that creativity is a living force, powerful and magnetic. Like a current, you don't control it. And when you stop fighting it and let it move you, you realize it leads you to where you wanted to be all along.
This podcast is about staying with that current through self-doubt, uncertainty, and loneliness, and trusting that your creativity is worth it.
Over the next 12 weeks, we'll be following the artist's way, and we'll be discussing the chapters and our experiences doing the work. We see it as an opportunity to explore the depths of creativity and its connection to life's biggest questions and possibilities in a collaborative, community-building way.
We're really glad you're here.
Well, welcome, Jess, to another week of Creative Current and Artist Way Week 6.
Week 6. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the Recovering a Sense of Abundance is the chapter title, which I think is such an important part of this whole journey. And I'm really excited to talk about it because I also think it's like one of so far, probably one of the most complicated elements when it comes to creativity and like the choices that we feel like we have to make in order to live the creative life that we want to live.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. I think I've in the last few years, especially, I've had different cycles or different relationships with abundance. I think this is so critical to a flourishing creative life.
Can you share about some of those cycles in however big of strokes you feel comfortable sharing, just like what they've looked like and how they've changed?
Yeah. Let's see. I think the easiest narrative for me to get caught up in from an autopilot perspective, meaning it's just sort of running in the background and I forget, is that I don't have enough. And and how that relates back to abundance for me is re-examining what enough even is. And I really had to do that before quitting my job. So that was some deep work in October and November that, always started off in a stressful state. And I commend my past self. I think I just gently eased into it, but just looking at finances and looking at a runway. And I remember reading the Substack. I'm forgetting the name, so I'll link it in the show notes when I find it. But I really appreciated what she said because it was just helpful to hear somebody else go through the same exercise. And she'd always said that she never felt like she had enough. She never had enough to quit her job and to pursue creative endeavors or pursue the life she wanted to live, which was more I think, the entrepreneurial route. And I realized that I was very easily getting caught up in that loop. And I think it's especially easy when you live in the Bay Area with everything being priced so high. You hear about these high tech salaries that people just are very quick to be like, oh my gosh, that's not even enough to sustain a comfortable lifestyle. And then when it came time to quit my job, I basically decided to make the choice to tell myself that I have enough and that I can trust myself to bring in more financial opportunity as I move through this process. And so those are the two new stones that have been unturned for me in my world, in my relationship of abundance. And what's crazy is that I already am experiencing what I would say is an abundance of contract opportunities coming in right now, which I really didn't expect. So I'll pause there. But I don't know, Jen, if any of that felt relatable.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I think it's just so wonderful how you are still so recent into stepping in to this new reality, to, like, acting on that, which I feel like is when she's talking through this chapter, I feel like Julia is still kind of, like, writing to people that maybe need to start grappling with this idea that, like, "Hey, you can step out. Hey, if you do operate,
Mm.
like, believing that you'll be taken care of, this can happen." And then so, like, what you're saying right now is, like, proof in your life of how
Yeah.
that happens, It's like that trusting that you had enough and telling yourself and creating that narrative for yourself to be ready, and I'd love to hear more about that process of shifting that for you because it's one thing to, like, say it and know that you want that feeling, and it's, like, a whole separate experience to actually keep choosing it and then to act on it,
Mm.
like, by leaving your job or even doing the work. I think I this is sort of funny timing for me because I just, like, launched some work around money, like a
Yeah.
course program around money, and this is all very in line with what I was teaching too, but it's like the work to even, like, look at your money and figure out what the runway would be, to figure out how you could live and what is enough, like, most people won't even do that work. So they never know the answer. It's like the unanswered question keeps
Mm.
people stuck and
Mhm.
trapped, and so I think it's so cool how, like, you kept going, and I know it's, like, a lot of work to figure out what do the numbers say, what is enough, so then you can act on it, but if you could share more about, like, that
Yeah.
process and what it felt like, I think that'd be
Yeah. Well, Jen, it's funny that you said it's a lot of work because it's definitely it's not an immediately like joyful activity for me to do. But it's funny because when you said that, I thought, oh, is it a lot of work or is it like what is it about it that makes it hard? I and it's like truly what makes it hard for me is my beliefs. It's like it can easily turn into a shaming activity, but like where I'm self-shaming of, like, look at all this money that I spent on drinks and going out and oh, I could have saved more. And then it's like, oh, can I stay in my apartment? Which was one of my biggest concerns. That was when I whittled everything else down. I was like, fine, whatever. I will live a sober life, like no more drinking or I will, you know, cancel the subscription or whatever, as long as I can stay in my apartment. That was something I
Mhm.
was so stressed about and attached to. And I still probably kind of am, but I'm trying to also get my psyche and subconscious a little bit more detached from that outcome
Mm.
just to help me relax. And then I think to detach from the outcome of having this apartment, I mean, perhaps I haven't attached to like that material outcome completely, but what I told myself in exchange was trust that you would be able to find another beautiful, safe living spot that brings you joy. Just trust that you could do that somehow. You could pull it in, you could manifest it. And maybe it's somewhere else where it costs less to live. And maybe it takes you into a different city in the United States or something. Like all these things that I don't really feel calling toward right now. But yeah, the whole exercise of looking at a budget, I think can so easily bring up fears and worries. And so I don't know that I have a totally clear answer, except that I realized if I can go into this with so much gentleness and curiosity and self kindness, like, okay, this is where some of my money went. And like, yeah, did I end up taking like a $200 cab to the airport in New York that I was totally, like, what? $200 last time I did this, it was like 115. Like, I don't know, but just like sitting with the fear in in a state of kindness and knowing, I mean, I don't know, Jen, I've not ever been someone who's been like in this chapter, she talks a lot about like the universe coming in and supporting you. And I have always been on the side of I need to make everything myself. I need to be independent. I've not been in a lot of relationships, so I've like funded most of my lifestyle. So feeling like it's all on me, like all
Mhm.
that weight is on me. And I have been playing a little bit with softening there and just at least I think there's two things that I can hold at once, which is one, I am still action oriented, responsible, going after financial contract opportunities that make sense and giving those time and support and energy. And I can also hold new beliefs when I wake up in the morning, universe, I like it's just so it feels so silly and boring to say, but like I trust that you have my back while I also have my back. And
Mm.
that makes it okay.
Mhm.
Like then it feels okay to lean into that. And oddly enough, I have seen very random acts of abundance show up into my life, whether that was my neighbor giving me tons of old clothes that fit me perfectly,
Oh
that
my
were like
goodness.
brand new. I knew I wanted a new rug. She was also getting rid of a rug that fit my apartment perfectly. And I love that. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up, but I love that Julia is talking about these little like what is abundance? It's actually these smaller items that are in service of like your well-being and creative spirit. It does not have to be like a brand new sports car.
Mhm.
Or yeah.
Mhm. Okay, wow. So, thank you, Jess, for sharing all of that. With having the content of this chapter, like, fresh in my mind, I I feel like I wanna offer a little something.
Sure. Yeah.
Alright. So, when I think about what she wrote in here about abundance, and I'm gonna see if I can find the specific section real quick about where she's talking about it. Oh, it's in the luxury. Okay, this is
Okay.
talking in the luxury. And she is basically talking about how allowing ourselves luxury, some amount of luxury, and she's talking about, like, little things sometimes, like, she mentions somebody who just loves raspberries and feels luxurious buying raspberries every week, okay? But that, like, allowing yourself some of that is the path to abundance, it's, like, kind of how you hold up one your end of the bargain,
Mm,
while you wait, like, you don't just keep
mhm.
yourself in deprivation and, like, wait for abundance to come in, and I think you talked about that when you're like, "I'm gonna take care of myself. I'm gonna do my part to take care of myself while I let the universe come up." But I was gonna say, when you were talking about the budgeting work, and you talked about how you, like, went through all of your numbers and you were able to make con consolations on almost everything except your apartment,
Yeah.
I was like, "I don't know if the work is for you to get comfortable with your apartment going away." Like, what if that is your luxury? Like, what if that is,
Mm.
like, one thing that is, like, it's good of you to want? Like, the whatever
Yeah.
it is about having this apartment for you and what this apartment maybe means to you. I mean, it sounds like you have wonderful neighbors, at least one
Yes.
wonderful neighbor,
Yes.
you know? Like, having a space to yourself to, like, allow you to, like, nourish yourself and, like, be on this like, all of that is valuable, and I'm like, I don't think the work necessarily is to be like, I need to be able to, like, de like, I get that you wanna detach from outcomes, and, like, not held anything to, but also I'm like, what if a reframe is just, this is part of what luxury is to me, you know?
Mm.
And maybe it can always shift and change, but I feel like it's like I would hope that if it shifts and changes, it feels like you're being led in that way to where the next step feels as luxurious as what you have now, not like a compromise and a taking away and a you
Mm.
know?
Mm. I love that last part. Yes, yes, yes. I think actually, yeah. Gosh, that feels like that opened up a new door for me of like where to go with that. Like, let the next apartment be just as beautiful and comforting and warm and I feel a drawing toward it and I feel closed on this chapter. I think it's a tool, Jen, that I use at like the practice of detaching makes it okay, it gets me out of constriction
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
can easily go, okay, Actually, I mentioned this to a therapist one time where I had a deep realization that sometimes wanting something is very vulnerable. And in that vulnerability of like wanting something so much, or that's just so precious to our hearts, whatever that is, partner, a child, an apartment, um, it's like it can very easily get me into this opposite state of frenzy where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go to the extreme to just
Mm,
protect, like that one thing.
yes.
So I think
Yes.
that's where I'm trying to use the detachment, but I like what you're offering because it does feel like it's softening a little bit, and I feel like what you're bringing in is a little bit of like this trust and self permission. Um, yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, wait, Jen. We need to dive into you. Or like,
Oh
I need to
gosh.
hear what your thoughts are on all these topics.
Okay, you're gonna have to ask me like a pointed question because I feel like thoughts are all over on this chapter.
Ooh,
Like, they're all over the place.
that's the best part. Okay. Um, Jen, you are doing this workshop around money and abundance. What is
Right.
the role for money for you in your life? And do you view it as the same thing as abundance, or do you view money having um a slightly different job?
Yeah. I would definitely say a different job. Um, However, also why I decided to teach on money, which is not something that came naturally. Like if it was like it was like a calling to say like you need to teach this, and I was like, hell no. Start teaching on money. I don't want to be one of those people. And then I just could not stop the flow of ideas and like concreteness. And then I was doing like a lot of breath work, especially in January. I was like I committed to doing it every day, and I just kept getting these visualizations of like of money and how to teach on money. And sometimes I would get this image and it just didn't make sense to me for a couple of days. And then I just kept going and more ideas. So I feel like this is the energy that I'm coming into because in my actual life, I have found the most abundance when like the money it's not abundant. The money has not been abundant when I have felt most abundant, but I have needed to understand, like you said, where the money was and where it could come from, and like have that trust and know that I was okay in order to experience abundance.
Mm.
So I like was writing my website copy for this um money work, which I call like make the money math. It's just supposed to be fun. And I'm like, maybe it just sounds like I don't know how to spell. I don't, or don't know
No.
how to write a sentence. Um, but it's like because it's it sounds like it's all about the money, and, like, there is a component of the money, but it's really has nothing to do with the money. It all has to be with, like, stepping out in an alignment, but I have seen I mean, like, I have coached a lot of people through transitions and towards, like, new career things, and, like, money is always this piece, but it is never the actual thing that is driving anyone, and then money comes when you step into that. So I have, like, seriously dozens of stories from my own life of acting in alignment with my higher self, my most creative self or whatever. And like I have had some foundational level of security, or I have made bets on myself that didn't require a financial investment right away. Maybe it was a time investment, maybe it was like a visibility investment. Um, and then the money comes. But I would say the most like drastic example was when I left my job in tech in 2024. I had the salary, and we had 2 kids. I had a baby and a new 3-year-old, and both my husband and I were working, and, like, we had made a lot of choices based on that setup. We had moved. We had only been in our house a year and we hadn't sold our previous house. Like we had rented out our previous house and it was amazing. We loved living there. We loved the neighborhood. But the things that I loved about the house were the fact that like the way it let the light in and the fact that the back door, like the kitchen, when you worked in the kitchen, it looked out towards the back windows
Mm,
and the back door opened straight up onto the patio and into the grass, and we had shade so the kids could, like, we could be outside so many hours of the day, where in Albuquerque, you usually have to be inside because it's too
mhm.
hot and too sunny, and we had real grass, which was also rare in Albuquerque, but it was, like, things like this that I just, like, loved about the house. Not that it was, like, a big house, not that it was in the good neighborhood, it was, like, the actual way that our life felt there that I, like, loved. But then I was like, okay, anyways, to speed up the story here, there was a lot of compounding factors. My husband had a sabbatical coming up. I was like going to my kids' daycare 3 times a day to breastfeed my baby because he wouldn't take a bottle at daycare. He wouldn't sleep at night because he wasn't, whatever. He was hungry and who knows why else. So there's like it was just like, and my older son, I did not like the behaviors and things he was picking up at school. And I just loved I could wanted to spend more time with them, and so it led me to end up leaving my job to primarily stay home with my kids so then we could travel, and we went straight up to Michigan and spent the summer, like, by the lake, and then traveled in Europe. But in order to do that, like, I still needed to make money, and figuring out how much money to make and how to make it so that I could still do all those things. Because if I just take a regular contract job and I'm doing this type of work and I'm, like, working in this way, I am not things aren't going to work out the way they want. I'm not gonna be present, you know?
Mm,
How is this gonna so I needed to be really creative and have really strong boundaries over how much time I was going to spend making money and, like, what I needed to make in order to have it all work, and then so, yeah, that's a long but I don't know. Now I'm like, "Oh, I feel like I could have shared a different example." But, like, I guess it's like I would say that we were floating at that point, like, our finances were floating, like, where we weren't accumulating a lot more money,
yeah.
but we were steady, and that gave us the chance to just enjoy
Mm,
and know that everything was okay, and, of course, this opportunity to then move came up during this time period, and we were able to have the time and space to really think about it and evaluate it and know that this type of lifestyle where we have enough and we are connected and get to go and do exciting things together, like, this is what we want more than so many other versions of success.
mm,
But, then I will have to say, for the money piece, the money piece is way more stands out to me than because I, like, am oh gosh, okay, so, like, along with being a creative, like, I'm also, like, a visionary, and I have something to say, and I have these, like, big work and big ideas that I wanna get out there, and what I know now is money and being able to make money is an expanding tool to be able to do that at a higher level, to be able to create more impact
mm,
without running myself ragged, and so I'm now kind of coming to a different part on the journey where I see how important the money piece is when it's in its right space. But I feel like I needed to fully understand the enoughness and how that creates abundance before being able to be in the place where it's like, okay, and now to level up and not level up my lifestyle necessarily,
yeah.
but to level up my work, money is an important piece.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Jen, I want to go back to you said so many rich things I want to dive into, but you said like while you're in this wonderful period where your family was traveling, you guys had time and space, everything was steady. Did you I think right before that you had said you'd put like boundaries on certain contract work
Mhm.
or what came in. Like what did those boundaries look like?
Okay. So, one of them was so I did reopen my career coaching business at that time, and it was a little different. It was a membership model. So previously, I had only done like one-on-one coaching with some group things here and there. So that was one boundary, as I was like, I'm only going to have people in this membership model because then I knew I would show up for like one group coaching call, like office hours a week. Everything else was content that I like created and dripped out,
Mhm.
and I had clear boundaries of how I would respond and engage with clients. So that was one. So it was more like no one-on-one clients because I
Yeah.
was as soon as I started launching this, I started getting people asking to do one-on-one.
Okay.
And I mean, there's a lot more money in one-on-one, but the more money was also like way less control. So
Yeah.
that was one. I just said no to people. And then I launched it and I got a founding group in, and it did not meet my bare minimum that I needed to bring in. But when I started to promote more and find other people that came in, I was getting like bad fits. And so
Mm,
I ended up firing clients because I was like, this is gonna throw off the dynamic, and also the amount of energy that these like poor fits. And this happened because I reopened my Google listing and I
mhm,
ended up getting just people who were like coming because they wanted a career coach and not people who I had attracted from my messaging. So then
mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm not going to like even though you signed up to pay me for a year, I am not going to accept that money anymore because it's not worth it. And then I still I had so many ideas for how to make money. So I was like pitching copywriting support. I was pitching some ghostwriting services for people on LinkedIn. But as I evaluated them, I was like, oh no, like these are no's for me, even though I'm the one that was like pitching it. And then out of the blue, a contact sent me an email and was like, "Hey, I have some contract work. Does this seem like you want?" And it was like it was almost I mean, it was shocking how easeful this contract was for me. I was like, "What?" I mean, yes, I would love to do this, and it was so easeful, like, such a wonderful team. Like, it literally, like, met my income gap perfectly. And then so then once I had that, my boundary was just saying, like, "I'm set. I am not going to go and try to, like, solve this anymore." Like, I have this wonderful opportunity that came my way. It's easy, it's nice, it's like, I can do good work, and I don't need to be freaking out about it. This is the answer, and so the boundary then was just to stop and just trust that what I had was enough until it changed, and it carried that was how I stayed the whole year. I never really added anything else until my membership came to a close and we moved.
Wow. What what I love about that example is that you were not in scarcity mindset. You were not afraid to say no to these other opportunities or pull those clients out of the program because there was this choice of, I don't know, it's these phrases coming to mind are like not settling and also choosing, like continuing to choose further alignment and trusting that it was out there. Or at least giving yourself the chance to see if it was out there, and it was. I
Mm.
don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying like and it didn't feel I wanna say I left my job my last day of work was the 4th of July. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay,
Yes.
so this is sort of funny. This is a I think this would be very interesting for some people to hear. So one of my ideas for how to make money was an idea that I've used a lot in the past, which is when leaving my job, offer to continue consulting for my employer. And so I felt this need to at least propose it because I was like, if I could make this big chunk, like that would like totally set us up, but also I really did not want to do this. Wanted to cut ties so bad, and I mean, I loved the people that I worked closely with, but I mean, it was like a post-acquisition tech company, like, politics were insane. So, what I did for myself to be able to actually submit the proposals, I did actually think, like, "What would make this worth it to me? What would feel abundant?" And I knew that I was gonna be in the up I in Michigan at the lake. So, like, we go and take our kids there and spend the summers. Generations of my family go there, we, like, migrate there, and it started with my grandma and all of her sisters, and so it's so special to me, and a few years before this, my husband and I had bought a plot of land up there because we wanted to make sure that, like, we can continue this for our family, and it's just, woods right now, but that is what I chose for my pricing. I was like, "This needs to pay off this land in order for me to spend this summer doing that," because I'm like, I had a 1 and a 3-year-old. I'm like, I am never, ever going to get time back with a 1 and 3-year-old during the summer at the lake. And so if I'm gonna be spending my time trying to work in this stressful environment inside on my computer while my kids are out with their cousins and this needs to pay off the land. So that is how I priced my work, and
Oh,
I didn't get it, and I was like and it's totally fine. It was totally fine. All summer long, I never wished I had that contract. But I
oh,
was like, I would do this. I would figure out a way to make this work if this is how it's supposed to go. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah. Oh, Jen, I love that. And I do think that that is such a great story. I think there is this fear of, oh my gosh, if we don't get this contract, then oh shoot, where's the next one going to come from? Um, but what there's also this subtle thread that you're kind of illuminating. Wait, that's not the right word. Whatever. Let's go with
it's okay, just
illuminating.
use it.
Um, and is I think it's something so beautiful that I have been asking myself more and more recently. But Jen, it's like this, what is the cost of having that work come in? Like anytime we have a financial opportunity, and you and I were talking, like my current contracts are with tech companies right now. That's fine. They, energetically feel good, but I do love looking at that other side of the coin. And I think Julia brings this up too, is what is, like, there are other costs associated with, or can be. And like in my case with the job, it just felt like the job was then costing me too much. It was costing me my happiness. So
Mhm.
while I was making, a wonderful supportive salary, it was just depleting other areas of my life that were not financial. And I think it's mm, that I think I have been a lot of energy around people where it's easy to ignore that and be like, oh, it's fine. Like I still need to make money. Money is money in healthcare, money in healthcare, money in health, like a
Mm.
salary, paycheck in healthcare. We just need the stability. I need a place to live. And yeah, I think in this chapter moving forward, and Jen, it's been so helpful talking to you about this as well. I think I feel like you had these principles going over contract work with me, the other week where you were
Yeah.
saying like, what's the energetic toll of this opportunity? And I feel like you had some other really great parameters that, could act as a compass of, does this feel supportive and nurturing, or can I let this go, even if it does come with a wonderful paycheck number next to it?
You know? Oh, yes. You know, I feel like what you just said reminds me of the dynamic in tech where, like, the norm is to have unlimited PTO, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Because people still don't use it because we are so tied to our desire to want to hold on to what we have and to not look like we don't care so that we don't get fired. Like, our motivations to maintain the security that we have are so much stronger than policies. And so it's like, that's the trap that you stay in when you are needing
Mm.
like, if your relationship to security is money, you are always going to be, like, selling yourself to that beast in some way, to get the money and to have it to come in. And then I also thought when you were saying that is it's like, yes, very few people will, like, call you out if you use the excuse of needing money and healthcare because everybody feels that, you know what I mean? So it's like the safest thing to say if you're just trying to, like I'm not saying that you're doing this, I'm talking in general, but, like,
Totally.
justifying, like, why you're not doing something. If you're like, "Well, it's the money," like, literally I mean, I've done that myself so much when I just don't really want to get into something with someone, I'll just be
Yeah.
like, "Well, I do this," it's like, makes a little more sense financially or whatever, and it's just the conversation ender.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
so true. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's like, if we were to really as creative people, as, like, purpose-driven people, as, like, people who want to be connected to our souls and our life force energy, like, if we were to actually write down what it costs us to stay like, the costs are really high, um, to stay in pressured workplaces. I'm not trying to say anything specific because I don't think it's one specific industry. I think it's just,
No,
like
yeah.
but it's also just the norm. Like, we take it for granted how much it costs, and I don't know, I just need to be the devil's advocate real quick too, because I just want to say that, like, as a creative person who has also run a handful of, like, different businesses and tried different business models, I will say that, like, this exact same thing can come up within your own business model. I think it's incredibly empowering to be able to make money on your own, like, independently, whether that is through contracting or from, like, having clients or something that you create all yourself. I think it's incredibly empowering, and I want, like, more and more people to have that experience and to feel like they're able to do it. But I'll also say that, like, your own business can turn into the same exact types of handcuffs and confines,
Mm.
you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
It's not the solve.
Oh god, I feel like, Jen, we could have, like, 3 more episodes on this topic. I'm sure it'll come up again.
Yeah.
But I loved how, you were talking about it's, like, viewing money as security, and I do think that there is something I don't know, it sounds wild, like, of course, money is security, but I don't know. I think there's more soil to dig in there of what are like, what are the beliefs around security?
Yes. I mean, okay, what if security was an outcome
Ooh.
of, being aligned and being in your purpose? And I think, like, I would say, like, I have experienced that. And if I think about, like, what comes first, so if it's security doesn't come first, like, if I like, when I this is why this conversation is so hard, because when I reflect on the fall, like, this past year in the fall, when my kids started in school, my sole focus was creating safety and security in myself and my body. I was not focused on money at all. I was not focused on business activities. I was taking care of myself, getting in tune with what I wanted to create, what my voice was. And literally, like, out of that, like, very aligned offers were coming to my mind. And then I was able to offer them with, like, joy and abundance and, like, this feeling like, "This is my work." And then when people
Mm,
signed up and started to pay me, it was like, "This is incredible. This is amazing." But I would say I was feeling that security, or I was feeling, like, safety within myself, and then the money became extra. But then I also have experienced the same thing that I think you were talking about earlier around the outcomes and, like, detachment,
mm,
because then my struggle came is coming and it's hitting, like, now where it's like, "Okay, well, now I have this coaching business I'm running again. Whereas, like, I had let it off. I wasn't commit I was like, "Maybe I'll never coach again in the fall." But then the desire to coach came, and I created an offer, and now I'm like, "Well, now I have to run a coaching business." And it's making me bring a lot more control into what that has to look like,
Mm.
and it's I'm trusting that it's just a step in the journey that's, like, uncomfortable and growing, and I'll get to, like, where it feels joyous again, but I will say that, like, controlling what it looks like feels like it's taking me away from the place where I was when it was just, like, true inspiration. So I'm like, "Well, then how do I" if you have to market a business, you have to, like, let people know. I have to, like, have the website, but, like, it took a lot of what I would call work to create that, so I don't know, there's tension here too.
Ooh. Well, I'm always like, wherever there is tension, there is just room for growth and incredible insight and more inner peace.
Yes, that's the goal.
Always the goal.
Always the goal.
Oh my God. Jen, this was awesome. Um, I was gonna try to ask us both if we had a little luxury today, something like, what's our raspberry that we've
Yes,
experienced?
what's yours?
Um, oh my gosh, my raspberry was the weather is so unexpectedly nice here. It's 75 degrees and I was in the ocean yesterday. And that
Like
was
swimming?
crazy. Well, I didn't quite swim, but I got my legs in. And it was just, yeah. Uh that was joy. And Julia's like, abundance is joy, joy is abundance.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, Mine is, like, just looking out the window at the nature. We just put up a bird feeder on our porch and are getting so many birds, and looking out the window and seeing any number of animals and wildlife is just I mean, I feel so luxurious doing that. So,
Magical.
yeah.
Ooh, keep us updated on this bird feeder.
Okay,
Have
I
you
love
seen
that
any more
we
deers?
are I just feel like it's interesting that both of our luxuries were nature.
Yes. I was also kind of surprised by that.
I love it.
Ugh, same. Okay. Well, you're about to have great outside time. Where you
Yes,
going?
right.
So yay.
Alright. Thanks, Jess.
Jen. Yeah. We'll talk next week.
Yay.